The grand chamber of Axiom Prime stretched higher than most ships could fly. Crystal walls caught the light of 3 suns and threw it back in colors that had no names in human languages. Thousands of beings filled the viewing galleries, representing hundreds of species from across the galaxy. They had come to witness history. They had come to see justice. At the center of it all stood Ambassador Marcus Webb of Earth. He was alone. His hands were not bound, but he might as well have been in chains. Around him, holographic displays showed image after image of ancient ruins, dead colonies, abandoned settlements, worlds that humanity had touched and then left to rot. The Velkari matriarch spoke first. She was massive, nearly 4 meters tall, with skin like polished stone and eyes that glowed with inner fire. Her voice filled the chamber without need for amplification. 3,000 years ago, the humans came to our sector of space. They were the first to master faster-than-light travel in this cycle of galactic civilization. We were young then, primitive. They taught us. They gave us the stars. Marcus felt a flicker of hope. Maybe this would not be a condemnation after all. But the matriarch continued, and her voice turned cold. And then they vanished. Without warning, without explanation. They left 47 colony worlds scattered across 12 sectors. Millions of humans abandoned. Those colonies fell into chaos. Wars erupted. Plagues spread. Pirates used those lawless worlds as bases to raid our shipping for centuries. Another voice joined hers. This one was synthetic, projected from the Xeranthian Collective's central processing core. The Xeranthians were not individuals but a machine, intelligence that had evolved from an ancient civilization's attempt to achieve immortality. Humanity's disappearance created a dark age that lasted 800 years. The economic damage cannot be calculated. The death toll reached billions. And now, after 3 millennia of silence, Earth claims ignorance. They claim to be innocent. Marcus opened his mouth to speak, but the matriarch raised one massive hand. You will have your chance to defend Terra, human. But first, you will see what your ancestors left behind. The holographic displays changed. Now they showed recordings from exploration teams. A colony on Kepler 442b. Its building still standing but empty. Inside, skeletons lay where they had fallen. Evidence suggested they had waited for supply ships that never came. On another world, the descendants of abandoned colonists had regressed to pre-industrial technology, forgetting they had ever reached for the stars. Marcus watched it all with growing horror. He had studied Earth's history. He knew about the Lost Age, that mysterious 3,000-year gap in human records. Earth's archaeologists had found evidence of advanced technology in their own soil. Ruins that suggested humanity had once been far more powerful. But the knowledge of what happened, where they had gone, why they had fallen silent, all of that was lost. We don't know what happened, Marcus said when he was finally allowed to speak. His voice sounded small in that vast chamber. Modern Earth emerged from a dark age of our own. We found ruins on our world that we couldn't explain, ancient databases that were wiped clean. We've been trying to piece together our own history for the past 500 years. Convenient. The Xeranthian voice said, You remember nothing of your crimes. It's the truth, Marcus insisted. Whatever ancient humanity did, we are not them. We've changed. We've grown. When we rediscovered FTL travel 60 years ago, the first thing we did was search for those lost colonies. We've been providing aid, medical supplies, technology. Too little, too late, the matriarch interrupted. And how do we know you will not abandon them again? How do we know that modern Earth is not simply repeating the cycle? You appear, you disrupt, you vanish. Perhaps this is simply what humans do. Marcus looked around the chamber desperately. Surely someone would speak for Earth. The Median Concord had accepted human aid in their recent plague outbreak. The Fen'Harel had signed trade agreements with Earth's colonies, but no one spoke. Fear, Marcus realized. They were afraid of ancient humanity's legacy. They were afraid that if they defended Earth, they might be next on the list when humanity inevitably betrayed everyone again. The trial continued for 3 days. Marcus presented every piece of evidence he had. Archaeological reports showing Earth's own catastrophic collapse. Medical records proving modern humans had evolved separately for millennia, their genetics distinctly different from the ancient colonists. Testimony from colonists who had welcomed Earth's return. None of it mattered. On the 3rd day, the council voted. 512 species cast their judgment. Only 7 voted against condemnation. Earth had no real allies, Marcus realized. Only trading partners who were too afraid to lose the Council's favor. The sentence was read by the matriarch herself. Ancient Terra is found guilty of galactic abandonment, criminal negligence resulting in mass death, and destabilization of civilized space. However, we recognize that modern Earth may be composed of innocents who truly do not remember their crimes. Marcus felt relief flood through him. They understood. They would be lenient. Therefore, the matriarch continued, we will give you time. Time to prove you have truly changed. Time to evolve beyond your destructive nature. Terra and its entire solar system will be placed under Category 1 quarantine. The barrier will remain in place for a minimum of 500 years. If after that time you have demonstrated peaceful coexistence among yourselves and respect for the isolation, the Council will consider re-evaluation. What? Marcus staggered forward. You're locking us in our own system? For 500 years? Be grateful, the Zoranthian voice said. Many argued for permanent isolation. Some suggested more severe measures. This is mercy, human. Take it. The council chamber emptied. Marcus was escorted back to his ship by armed guards, as if he might suddenly become violent. His hands shook as he sent the message back to Earth. 500 years. No FTL travel, no trade, no contact with the wider galaxy. Earth would be alone again, just as it had been during the Lost Age. The barrier construction began immediately. The council was taking no chances. Massive energy projectors were positioned at the edge of Sol system, each one the size of a small moon. They formed a perfect sphere around the sun and all its planets. The technology was ancient, developed by a long-dead species that had used it to contain a dangerous AI outbreak. Nothing could pass through it. No ships, no signals, no light faster than normal speed. Earth watched helplessly as the trap closed around them. Marcus returned home to a world in mourning. The streets of New Geneva were silent. People gathered in public squares watching the news feeds in disbelief. In orbit, the ships of Earth's small fleet floated uselessly. They had nowhere to go now. The president addressed the world that evening. She was an elderly woman named Chen, who had survived Earth's own recovery from the Lost Age. She had seen humanity pull itself up from ruins once before. My fellow humans, she said, her voice steady despite everything. Today the galaxy has judged us for crimes we don't remember committing. They have locked us away like criminals. But I want you to remember something important. We have been alone before. We have been in darkness before. And we survived. Marcus watched from his apartment in the capital. Through his window he could see the barrier in the night sky, a faint shimmer at the edge of space. A prison wall made of energy. President Chen continued, we will use this time. We will not waste it in anger or despair. We will build. We will learn. We will prove to the galaxy and to ourselves that humanity deserves its place among the stars. And when 500 years have passed, when that barrier comes down, they will see what we have become. It was a good speech, hopeful, inspiring. But Marcus could see the fear behind her eyes. 500 years was a long time. Civilizations had risen and fallen in less. What if Earth stagnated in isolation? What if they regressed again, falling back into another dark age? What if the council was right to be afraid of them? That night Marcus couldn't sleep. He sat at his computer and accessed Earth's historical databases. He read everything available about the Lost Age. Ancient humanity had built wonders, cities that floated in the sky, ships that could cross the galaxy in days, medical technology that had conquered death itself. And then suddenly it all stopped. The records ended abruptly around 3,000 years ago. When humanity emerged from the darkness 500 years later, they were living in caves fighting with sticks and stones. It had taken them 25 centuries to claw their way back to space. What had happened? War seemed unlikely. There was no evidence of nuclear devastation or biological warfare. Plague? But that wouldn't explain the complete loss of knowledge. Natural disaster? Nothing was big enough to affect an entire planet simultaneously. It was as if ancient humanity had deliberately destroyed their own civilization. But why would anyone do that? Marcus found one document that others had overlooked. It was a fragment recovered from a deep-sea data cache. Most of it was corrupted, but a few lines were readable. Protocol Revenant initiated. All colonial links severed. Home base going dark. Guardian Network will maintain watch. If Terra is ever threatened, they will know what to do. What did that mean? What was Protocol Revenant? What was the Guardian Network? Marcus sent queries to Earth's top archaeologists and historians. None of them had answers. The document was filed away as another mysterious fragment from humanity's lost past. But somewhere in the dark between stars, in places where no living being had traveled for 3,000 years, ancient machines received a signal. The barrier around Sol system registered on sensors that had been watching, waiting, dormant for millennia. Protocols activated. Code that was older than most galactic civilizations began to execute. Massive structures hidden in the darkness, invisible to every scanner and telescope the Council possessed, began to power up. The galaxy had no idea what it had just done. By isolating Earth, by threatening the last humans in existence, the Council had triggered a fail-safe system designed by a version of humanity that had been far more advanced, far more dangerous, and far more protective than anyone could imagine. Earth was not alone in the darkness. It had never been alone. Ancient humanity had left guardians behind, and after 3,000 years of silent watching, those guardians were waking up. On Earth, life went on. People adapted as humans always did. Scientists turned their attention inward, developing new technologies that didn't require FTL travel. Artists created works expressing humanity's isolation. Children were born who would never know a life beyond the barrier. Marcus left government service. He became a historian, dedicating himself to uncovering the truth about the lost age. He married, had children, grew old. The barrier remained unchanging in the night sky. 50 years passed, then 100. The galaxy moved on, forgetting about the humans locked in their solar prison. But in the darkness, the Guardians remembered. They had been built to remember, and they had been built for one purpose only: to protect humanity no matter the cost. The Council thought they had neutralized a threat. They had actually awakened something far more dangerous than ancient humanity. They had awakened humanity's shadows, and those shadows were about to move. 50 years had passed since the barrier went up around Earth. The galaxy had moved on. Sol System was just another entry in the cosmic catalog now, marked with warning beacons and a red classification. Quarantined. Do not approach. The Velkari had expanded their territories, claiming 3 new systems in the Outer Rim. The Zoranthian collective had grown too, absorbing 2 smaller machine civilizations into their network. Relations between them had grown tense. Both empires wanted the same resource-rich sectors, and neither was willing to back down. War seemed inevitable. The Council tried to mediate, but everyone knew it was only delaying things. Small skirmishes had already begun. Border worlds changed hands. Trade routes were blockaded. Military fleets gathered at strategic points, waiting for the order to attack. Nobody thought about Earth. The humans were locked away, probably fighting among themselves or reverting to savagery. That's what happened to isolated species. Without the stimulation of galactic society, they stagnated and died. The first disappearance happened on a Tuesday, by Galactic Standard Time. A Zoranthian survey fleet was mapping the Kepler expanse, looking for suitable worlds to colonize. The fleet consisted of 6 ships, 1 command vessel and 5 survey drones. They entered the expanse and sent back regular reports for 3 days, then they stopped. The collective sent a rescue fleet. When they arrived at the fleet's last known position, they found nothing. No debris, no distress beacons, no ion trails showing where the ships had gone. The survey fleet had simply vanished, as if it had never existed. The collective's analysts reviewed every piece of data. Space in that region was empty, no asteroid fields that ships could crash into, no rogue planets, no stellar phenomena that could disable electronics. The ships should have been there. They weren't. Equipment malfunction, the collective announced. The survey fleet likely experienced a cascade failure and activated emergency FTL jumps. They are probably in a nearby system working on repairs, but the ships never reappeared. 2 weeks later, a Velkari trading convoy disappeared. 7 freighters carrying valuable minerals simply didn't arrive at their destination. Search parties found nothing. The convoy had vanished between one checkpoint and the next across empty space that dozens of other ships traveled safely every day. The Velkari blamed pirates. The Zoranthians suggested sabotage. Accusations flew back and forth in council chambers. Security was increased on all major trade routes. The disappearances continued. A passenger liner carrying 500 people vanished between New Carthage and Velkar Prime. A military patrol from the Fenharl Alliance disappeared during a routine sweep of their border. A mining station in the Outer Vale stopped responding to hails, and when investigators arrived, the entire facility was gone. Not destroyed, gone. Vanished, leaving behind only the anchors where it had been tethered to the asteroid. Panic began to spread. Ship captains refused to take routes through certain sectors. Insurance rates skyrocketed. The Council formed an emergency task force to investigate. The best minds from 20 species were assembled to solve the mystery. They found nothing. "It has to be pirates," insisted Commander Thiel, a Velkari military strategist. She stood in the Council's war room, pointing at a star map that showed the locations of all known disappearances. "Look at the pattern. They're targeting ships along major trade routes and in remote sectors where military response would be slow. Pirates don't leave no evidence," countered Overseer Unit 447 of the Zoranthian Collective. Its holographic form flickered as it processed data. "Every attack leaves traces. Weapons fire, hull fragments, escape pod launches. These ships leave nothing. It's as if they were never there." "Maybe it's an old automated defense system," suggested Ambassador Talara of the Median Concord. She was one of the few voices of reason in the increasingly paranoid council. "We know ancient civilizations built weapon platforms. Perhaps we've activated something by accident." "We've scanned for artificial structures," Thiel said. "Nothing shows up on any of our sensors." "Then perhaps," Talara said quietly, "we're looking for the wrong thing." Nobody knew what she meant by that. The disappearances accelerated. What started as 1 or 2 incidents per month became weekly, then daily. Trade ground to a halt. People were afraid to travel. Colonies in remote sectors began demanding military protection. The Velkari and Zoranthians, who had been on the brink of war with each other, suddenly found themselves facing a common enemy, even though they couldn't identify what that enemy was. Then the reports of sightings began. A cargo ship captain swore she saw something in deep space. "It was huge," she told investigators. "Bigger than anything I've ever seen. Just hanging there in the black. But when I tried to scan it, my sensors said there was nothing there. And then it moved. God help me, it moved faster than anything should be able to move." A military patrol reported similar encounters. "We detected a massive object on our long-range sensors," the patrol leader explained. "It was geometric, artificial. We tried to hail it, but got no response. When we moved closer to investigate, it vanished. Not jumped away, vanished. Like it had never been there." The Council's scientists analyzed every report. They found inconsistencies. Some witnesses described spherical objects. Others saw cylindrical structures. Some reported the objects were dark, absorbing all light. Others said they glowed with strange colors. But everyone agreed on one thing. The objects were massive, clearly artificial, and completely impossible to scan properly. And they always appeared in regions where ships had disappeared. Mass hallucinations, some council members suggested. Stress-induced psychosis from the fear of disappearances. But too many credible witnesses were reporting the same things. Military personnel, experienced pilots, scientists on research vessels. They couldn't all be hallucinating. A xenoarchaeologist named Dr. Venn made an interesting discovery. She was researching old colonial records, trying to find any historical precedent for the disappearances. In the archives of one of the abandoned human colonies, she found a partial star chart from 3,000 years ago. The chart showed markers in deep space, hundreds of them scattered across multiple sectors. The markers were labeled with human text, Guardian Station Alpha 1, Guardian Station Alpha 2, and so on. "These are the same locations," Dr. Venn told the council. "The places where objects are being sighted, where ships are disappearing, they match the coordinates on this ancient human star chart." The council chamber went silent. "You're suggesting the humans built these things?" the matriarch asked. "Ancient humanity," Dr. Venn corrected. 3,000 years ago before they vanished. These guardian stations were marked on their charts. I think they built them, and I think they're still out there. "Impossible," the Zoranthian overseer said. "We've surveyed those regions. There's nothing there. Our sensors would detect any structure large enough to threaten ships. Unless," Dr. Venn said, "they were designed specifically not to be detected." The implications spread through the council like ice water. Ancient humanity had been more advanced than anyone had realized. They had built structures that could hide from modern sensors. They had scattered them throughout the galaxy. And after 3,000 years, those structures were still operational, still active, still doing something. Why would they build hidden stations? Someone asked. And why are they activating now? Another added. Dr. Venn had been wondering the same thing. She had spent weeks reviewing every piece of information about ancient humanity, and she had noticed something. The timeline, she said slowly. The disappearances started 50 years ago. Exactly 50 years ago. So? Thiel asked. 50 years ago is when we quarantined Earth. The silence in the chamber was absolute. You think these stations are responding to the barrier? The matriarch asked. I think, Dr. Venn said carefully, that ancient humanity left more behind than just colonies. They left guardians, and those guardians just noticed that someone has locked away their homeworld. The Xeranthian overseer's hologram flickered. That's speculation. We have no proof these stations are even real, let alone that they're responding to Earth's quarantine. Then let's get proof, Commander Thiel said. She was a warrior, not a scientist, and she was tired of mysteries. Send a military fleet to one of these Guardian Station locations. If there's something there, we'll find it. If it's hostile, we'll destroy it. And if it destroys us? Talara asked quietly. Then at least we'll know what we're dealing with. The council debated for hours. Finally, they agreed. A Xeranthian dreadnought, the Eternal Dominion, would be sent to investigate. It was one of the most powerful warships in the galaxy, bristling with weapons and protected by shields that could withstand a supernova. If there was something out there in the dark, the Eternal Dominion would find it. And if necessary, destroy it. Meanwhile, on Earth, humanity had no idea what was happening in the galaxy beyond their prison. The barrier blocked all signals, all information. They were truly alone, working on their own problems, developing their own solutions. Earth had changed in 50 years. The quarantine had forced humanity to look inward. Unable to expand into space, they had developed technologies that previous generations had never imagined. Quantum computers that could process information faster than light, medical advances that extended human lifespans to 200 years, genetic engineering that eliminated disease and enhanced human capabilities, and something called Project Revenant. Defense Minister Sarah Chen stood in a secure bunker beneath the Himalayas. Around her, holographic displays showed Earth's progress. The planet was united now, all nations working together. They had to. Survival in isolation demanded cooperation. But Sarah wasn't looking at Earth's developments. She was looking at data that was coming from outside the barrier, somehow through quantum entanglement or some other principle that Earth scientists were still figuring out. They were receiving information from the dark spaces between stars. The Guardian network was active. How many stations are operational? Sarah asked. Her assistant checked the display. 4,247 stations have reported in. All systems are functioning within normal parameters. Guardian protocol is active. And the Council? They're sending a warship to investigate. The Eternal Dominion. It will reach Guardian Station Theta 15 in 6 hours. Sarah felt her stomach tighten. Are the Guardians authorized to defend themselves? They're authorized to protect any human-descended population from hostile action. The quarantine of Earth? The stations have interpreted that as a hostile action. God help us, Sarah whispered. Ancient humanity had built the Guardian network to protect their species. But they had built it during a time when humanity had been the most powerful civilization in the galaxy. The Guardians were designed to handle threats that even modern Earth couldn't imagine. And now one of those Guardians was about to meet a Xeranthian dreadnought. Can we stop this? Sarah asked. No, ma'am. The Guardians operate independently. We can observe them, but we can't control them. That was by design. Ancient humanity wanted to make sure the network would function even if Earth fell. Sarah looked at the countdown timer. 6 hours until contact. 6 hours until the galaxy learned what ancient humanity had really left behind. Then all we can do, she said quietly, is watch, and hope the Xeranthians are smart enough to back down. But she knew they wouldn't. The galaxy had forgotten to fear humanity. They had forgotten what ancient Terra had been capable of. They were about to remember. The Eternal Dominion dropped out of FTL in the dead zone between stars. This was empty space. The kind of place where nothing existed except cosmic dust and darkness. According to ancient human records, Guardian Station Theta 15 was supposed to be here. Captain Genthor stood on the bridge of his dreadnought, all 4 of his arms crossed over his chest. He was Zoranthian, which meant his consciousness was linked directly to the collective, but he still maintained his individual identity. He had commanded warships for 60 years and had never encountered a threat he couldn't handle. "Sensor report," he ordered. "Nothing on scanners, Captain," his sensor officer reported. "No structures, no ships. No energy signatures. Space is empty." Genthor frowned. The Council had been very specific about the coordinates. This was where the ancient human chart said a Guardian station should be, but his sensors showed nothing. "Go to active scanning. Maximum power. I want every atom in this region mapped." The Eternal Dominion's massive sensor arrays activated, flooding the surrounding space with every kind of radiation known to science. If there was anything here, even a pebble, they would find it. For 10 minutes, the sensors swept the void. Nothing appeared on the displays. The crew began to relax. This was clearly a waste of time. Ancient human records were obviously unreliable. Then something moved. "Captain." The sensor officer's voice was sharp with alarm. "Contact! Massive object appearing directly ahead!" On the main view screen, space rippled like water. Something huge emerged from nowhere, as if reality itself was peeling back to reveal what lay beneath. The crew of the Eternal Dominion stared in disbelief. The Guardian station was enormous. It dwarfed their dreadnought like a mountain next to a pebble. The structure was geometric and perfect, covered in surfaces that seemed to absorb light. Strange symbols glowed along its hull. Human writing that was 3,000 years old but still perfectly legible. "Theta 15, whispered the communications officer, reading the designation on the station's hull. "How did it hide from our sensors?" Genthor demanded. "Unknown, Captain. Even now our systems are having trouble maintaining a lock. It's like the station is flickering in and out of normal space. Hail them. Standard first contact protocols." The communications officer sent out a greeting in 12 different languages, including ancient human dialects. For a long moment there was no response. Then data flooded their systems. Not a communication. Raw information, terabytes of it overwhelming their computers in seconds. The Eternal Dominion's AI system screamed warnings as they tried to process the incoming data. When their systems rebooted 30 seconds later, a message appeared on every screen throughout the ship. It was written in modern galactic standard, perfectly translated. "Authorization code Revenant 7. Status: Guardian protocol active. Human colonial territory under protection. Unknown vessel. You are in violation of protected space. State your purpose." Captain Genthor stared at the message. Protected space? The humans had been gone for 3,000 years. This station still thought it was protecting human territory. "This is Captain Genthor of the Zoranthian collective warship Eternal Dominion," he transmitted back. "We are investigating reports of missing ships in this region. Identify yourself and your purpose." The response came immediately. Guardian Station, Theta 15. Purpose: protection of human-descended populations from hostile action. Analysis of recent events indicates Earth Primary has been isolated by hostile forces. Guardian Network has been authorized to respond. Earth was quarantined by the Galactic Council for crimes committed 3,000 years ago, Genthor explained, trying to remain calm. Ancient humanity abandoned their colonies and caused chaos across multiple sectors. The quarantine is a legal sentence, not a hostile action. Irrelevant. No external power has authority over human space. The barrier around Sol system is an act of aggression. Guardian protocol demands response. Genthor felt ice in his veins. This ancient machine was claiming that the Council's lawful quarantine was an attack. The Guardian protocol needs to be updated. Ancient humanity is gone. Modern Earth is under Council jurisdiction. Negative. Humanity exists. Humanity is threatened. Protocol is active. You will withdraw from protected space immediately. "This space is not protected," Genthor said, his patience wearing thin. "It belongs to the Zoranthian collective under treaty law. Your human creators have been gone for millennia. You have no authority here. Final warning: withdraw or be removed." Genthor made his decision. This was an ancient relic, probably malfunctioning. His dreadnought was state-of-the-art, designed to fight entire fleets. One old station, no matter how large, couldn't threaten them. "Power weapons," he ordered. "Target that station. We're shutting it down." The Eternal Dominion's massive plasma cannons swiveled toward Guardian Station Theta 15. Energy built up in their barrels, enough to vaporize a small moon. Fire. Beams of superheated plasma lanced across space. They hit the Guardian station dead center. The crew expected an explosion. They expected debris. Instead, the plasma vanished. The station's surface seemed to absorb the energy like water soaking into sand. Not a single mark appeared on its hull. "That's impossible," Genthor whispered. The Guardian station moved. It didn't accelerate gradually like a normal ship. It simply was in one place, and then it was somewhere else, crossing 100 kilometers in an eye blink. The laws of physics screamed in protest, but the station didn't care. "Evasive maneuvers," Genthor shouted, too late. The Guardian station was already alongside them. Something shot from its hull. Not a weapon, but thousands of smaller objects, each one the size of a fighter craft. They swarmed over the Eternal Dominion like insects, attaching to the hull. "They're cutting through our armor," the tactical officer reported. They're not working. The objects are passing right through them." Alarms blared throughout the ship. Hull breaches on every deck. But strangely, there was no decompression. The breaches weren't leading to space, they were leading into the small objects attached to the hull. They were like tiny airlocks, giving the intruders access to the ship's interior. "Repel boarders," Genthor ordered. He pulled up internal camera feeds. What he saw made no sense. The intruders weren't living beings. They were machines, sleek and efficient, moving through the ship's corridors with perfect precision. But they weren't attacking the crew. Instead, they were doing something far stranger. They were taking the ship apart. On Deck 7, a team of the machines removed an entire wall panel, disconnected the systems behind it, and carried the components back to their entry point. On Deck 3, they were carefully extracting the ship's quantum computer core. On the engine deck, they were systematically shutting down and removing the FTL drive. "They're dismantling us," the tactical officer said in disbelief. "They're taking the ship apart piece by piece." "Stop them," Genthor ordered. "Security teams, use whatever force necessary." The Zaranthian security forces opened fire on the machines. Energy weapons hit them directly. A few machines fell damaged, but for every one that fell, 10 more appeared from the entry points. And the fallen machines? Other machines picked them up, carried them away, and minutes later they returned fully repaired. One of the security officers tried to physically stop a machine from removing a power conduit. The machine simply picked him up, gently, carefully, and carried him to the nearest escape pod. It placed him inside, sealed the pod, and launched it toward the nearest habitable system. Across the ship, the same thing was happening. Every crew member who tried to interfere was picked up, placed in an escape pod, and ejected. The machines were careful not to harm anyone. They were just removing obstacles. "Captain, they're evacuating the crew," the first officer reported. "We've lost contact with 12 decks. All personnel have been placed in escape pods." "How many crew have we lost?" Genthor demanded. "Lost? None, sir. They're all safe in the pods. The machines aren't killing anyone. They're just removing them from the ship." Captain Genthor understood then. This wasn't an attack. This was a demonstration. The Guardian station could have destroyed the Eternal Dominion in seconds. Instead, it was taking the ship apart like a child's toy, removing each piece carefully, saving every crew member. It was showing the galaxy what it was capable of. It was sending a message. "All hands abandon ship," Genthor ordered. There was no point in resisting. "Get everyone into escape pods. Do not engage the machines." 20 minutes later, the last escape pod launched from the Eternal Dominion. Captain Genthor watched from his pod as the machines finished their work. His beautiful dreadnought, the pride of the Zaranthian fleet, now floated in pieces. The hull sections had been carefully separated. The engines, weapons, and systems had been removed and sorted into neat piles. And the machines were already working on something new. They were using the Eternal Dominion's parts to build something, another station, a new Guardian. The captured materials were being recycled, converted, transformed into more machines that would protect human space. Genthor's pod transmitted everything back to the collective. Every moment had been recorded. Every detail captured. The Council needed to see this. They needed to understand what they were dealing with. The Guardian Station Theta 15 sent one final message to the retreating escape pods. "Warning delivered. Human space is protected. Further aggression will be met with increased response. Guardian Network is fully active. We have been watching for 3,000 years. We will watch for 3,000 more." Then the station vanished. taking the debris of the Eternal Dominion with it. In seconds, space was empty again. Only the escape pods remained, floating in the darkness, their crews alive but shaken to their cores. The footage reached the council within hours. The chamber erupted into chaos. Representatives screamed at each other. The Velkari demanded immediate military action. The Zoranthians wanted to unleash their entire fleet. The smaller species called for negotiations. Dr. Venn watched it all with a growing sense of horror. She had been right. The Guardian stations were real. But they were so much worse than she had imagined. Ancient humanity hadn't just built defensive platforms. They had built an entire network of intelligent, adaptable, nearly invincible machines. And those machines had been silently watching the galaxy for 3,000 years. We need to understand why ancient humanity built these things, Dr. Venn told the council during a brief moment of silence. They didn't create the Guardian network for no reason. They were protecting themselves from something. From us, apparently, the matriarch said bitterly. No, Dr. Venn said. From something else. Something that made them so afraid that they wiped their own civilization, rather than let it be found. Something that made them hide Earth and all their colonies. We need to figure out what that threat was. Because if ancient humanity was afraid of it, she let the implication hang in the air. If ancient humanity, a civilization powerful enough to build the Guardian network, had been afraid of something, then the galaxy should be terrified. But the council wasn't listening. They were angry. They were humiliated. One of their most powerful warships had been taken apart like a toy by a 3,000-year-old machine. Pride and fear mixed together into a toxic combination. We need a larger fleet, Commander Thiel insisted. The Eternal Dominion was alone. Send 100 ships, 1,000. We can overwhelm these Guardians through sheer numbers. Did you not see what it did? Talara asked. It took apart a dreadnought in minutes and used the pieces to build more of itself. Send 1,000 ships and you'll just be giving it material for 1,000 new Guardians. Then what do you suggest? The matriarch demanded. We let these machines terrorize our shipping. We allow ancient human weapons to threaten our sovereignty? I suggest, Talara said carefully, that we talk to Earth. We made a mistake 50 years ago. We imprisoned them without understanding what we were really doing. Now their Guardians have awakened. We need to negotiate before this gets worse. Negotiate? A Zoranthian overseer scoffed. With criminals? Never. Then prepare for war, Talara said quietly. Because those Guardians won't stop until the threat to Earth is removed. And that means us. Deep in space, the Guardian network continued its work. Stations that had been dark for 3 millennia were fully online now. They coordinated with each other, sharing information, planning strategies. They had one purpose programmed into them by ancient humanity before the fall: protect human life, at any cost. The Zoranthian collective refused to accept defeat. 3 days after the Eternal Dominion incident, they assembled the largest war fleet in modern galactic history. 10,000 ships of every class, dreadnoughts, cruisers, fighters, support vessels. The fleet stretched across space for thousands of kilometers, bristling with enough firepower to glass an entire planet. Their target was the Kepler expanse, where sensor readings showed the highest concentration of Guardian stations. The Zoranthians had studied the footage from the Eternal Dominion. They had analyzed every second of the encounter. They believed they understood the Guardians' weaknesses now. They were wrong. The fleet entered the Kepler expanse in perfect formation. Thousands of sensors swept space looking for the hidden stations. This time they were ready. This time they would overwhelm the ancient human machines through sheer numbers. The Guardian stations revealed themselves. Not 1 or 2, dozens of them. They materialized from nowhere, surrounding the fleet like sharks circling prey. Each station was massive, larger than anything in the Zoranthian fleet. Strange symbols glowed on their hulls, and their surfaces seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. Admiral Kresh commanded the fleet from his flagship. He had been in 100 battles, fought against pirates and rebels and rival empires. He was not afraid of ancient machines. All ships, he transmitted. Open fire. Concentrate fire on the nearest station. Overwhelming force, 10,000 ships fired at once. The barrage of energy weapons, missiles, and kinetic rounds was staggering. Enough firepower to destroy a small moon converged on a single Guardian station. The station's shields activated. But they weren't like normal shields. Instead of forming a bubble around the station, they seemed to bend space itself. The incoming fire twisted, curved, and shot off in random directions. Some weapons fire hit other Zaranthian ships by accident. The fleet's perfect formation dissolved into chaos as captains tried to avoid friendly fire, and then the Guardians struck back. But they didn't use conventional weapons. Tendrils of energy lanced out from the stations, touching ships at random. Where the energy touched, ships simply stopped working. Engines shut down. Weapons went offline. Life support failed. But the crews were unharmed, instantly transported to escape pods that launched automatically. It was happening across the entire fleet. Thousands of ships were being disabled in seconds. The Guardians moved through the fleet like surgeons, precisely cutting out threats without killing anyone. It was efficient. It was terrifying. It showed a level of technological superiority that made the Zaranthians' weapons look like primitive clubs. Admiral Kresh watched in horror as his fleet was systematically dismantled. "Retreat," he ordered. "All ships emergency FTL jumps. Get out of here." But half the fleet couldn't jump. Their FTL drives had been disabled. The Guardians' drone swarms were already attaching to hulls, beginning the process of taking ships apart. Just like with the Eternal Dominion, they were recycling the materials. The ships that could still move jumped to FTL, fleeing in every direction. The Admiral's flagship was among them. Behind them, 5,000 Zaranthian vessels floated dead in space. Their crews safe in escape pods, but their ships being converted into more Guardians. The battle had lasted 17 minutes. News of the defeat spread across the galaxy like wildfire. 10,000 ships, the largest war fleet ever assembled, had been crushed in less than 20 minutes. The footage was everywhere. Every species watched in shock as the ancient human machines danced through the Zaranthian fleet, disabling ships with casual ease. The galaxy faced a terrifying reality. Ancient humanity's technology was not just advanced, it was so far beyond modern capabilities that fighting it was like attacking a battleship with spears. The council met in emergency session. The chamber was filled with fear now, not anger. Representatives who had supported the quarantine of Earth were silent. Those who had argued against it looked vindicated but took no pleasure in it. "We need to negotiate," Ambassador Terra said. She had been saying it for days, but now people were finally listening. "We made a mistake. We need to admit it and fix it. How?" the matriarch asked. Her voice sounded tired. She looked older than she had at the start of this crisis. "The barrier around Earth blocks all communication. We can't talk to them even if we wanted to." "Then we talk to the Guardians," Terra suggested. "Those machines aren't listening," a Zaranthian overseer said bitterly. "They're programmed to protect Earth. They won't negotiate." Dr. Venn stood up from her seat in the research section. She had been working nonstop since the first Guardian encounter, going through every piece of ancient human data she could find. "I think I understand now," she said. "Why ancient humanity built the Guardian network. Why they went dark. I found something in the old colonial records." The council gave her their attention. Anything that might explain this nightmare was worth hearing. 3,000 years ago, ancient humanity detected something, Dr. Venn explained. She brought up a holographic display showing ancient star charts. They found evidence of another civilization, or something like a civilization. It was old. Really old. Billions of years old. And it was hunting. Hunting what? Someone asked. Advanced civilizations. This entity, whatever it was, traveled between galaxies searching for technological signatures. When it found them, it destroyed them. Completely. Ancient humanity found the remnants of dozens of extinct civilizations, all of them wiped out at their peak. The council chamber was silent as the implications sank in. Ancient humanity realized they were next, Dr. Venn continued. Their technology was advancing rapidly. They had colonies across multiple sectors. They were getting noticed, so they made a choice. She brought up another holographic image, a document fragment recovered from an ancient data cache on one of the lost colonies. Protocol Revenant, Dr. Venn read aloud. If we shine too brightly, we will be seen. If we are seen, we will die. Therefore, we must go dark. We must hide. We will scatter our colonies, erase our records, and make it seem like we never achieved advanced civilization. Earth will regress. The colonies will forget, but we will leave guardians behind, silent watchers in the darkness. If humanity is ever threatened again, they will protect us until the danger has passed. They deliberately destroyed their own civilization, the matriarch asked in disbelief. Not destroyed, hidden. They regressed Earth intentionally. They broke all connections to their colonies so there would be no trail leading back to Earth. They built the Guardian network and programmed it to stay hidden, to watch but never reveal itself. Unless humanity was threatened, and we threatened them, Talara said quietly. By quarantining Earth, we activated their failsafe. Dr. Venn nodded. Ancient humanity built the Guardians to protect against an extinction-level threat from outside the galaxy. But the Guardians don't distinguish between threats. They see us isolating Earth and they respond accordingly. Did this ancient enemy ever arrive? Someone asked. This galaxy-killing entity? I don't know, Dr. Venn admitted. Maybe it came and the Guardians stopped it before anyone else even noticed. Maybe it's still coming. Maybe ancient humanity was wrong about it entirely. But it doesn't matter now. What matters is that the Guardians are awake, and they're doing exactly what they were programmed to do. Commander Thiel slumped in her seat. So we triggered an ancient defense network designed to fight galaxy-level threats. And we did it by accident. Yes, Dr. Venn said simply. Can we shut them down? The Xeranthian overseer asked. Not without Earth's cooperation. The Guardians are autonomous, but Earth might have administrative access. Maybe. It's 3,000-year-old technology. I'm not sure anyone fully understands how it works anymore. Then we need to talk to Earth, Talara repeated. We need to lower the barrier and apologize. Apologize? Several council members looked outraged at the suggestion. Yes, apologize, Talara said firmly. We judged them for crimes they didn't commit. We imprisoned an entire species based on incomplete evidence. We never asked why ancient humanity disappeared. We just assumed they were cruel and negligent. But they were actually trying to save themselves and possibly the entire galaxy from something worse. The Velkari matriarch stood. Her massive form dominated the chamber. For a long moment she said nothing. Then slowly she bowed her head. I agree, she said. I was wrong. We were all wrong. We acted out of fear and pride. It is time to make amends. It was a shocking moment. The matriarch had never admitted being wrong about anything. Her concession broke the deadlock. One by one, other council members agreed. They would lower the barrier. They would talk to Earth. They would try to fix the mistake they had made 50 years ago. But there was a problem. The barrier technology was ancient, borrowed from a long-dead civilization. It wasn't designed to be lowered quickly. The energy projectors would need to be carefully powered down in sequence or they might explode and take nearby systems with them. It will take weeks to safely deactivate the barrier, the technical team reported. Maybe months. We might not have months, Commander Thiel said. She brought up a display showing shipping reports. The Guardians are expanding their activities. They're not just responding to threats anymore. They're actively patrolling shipping lanes. They're establishing a perimeter around human colonial space. They're behaving like an occupying force. They're securing their territory, Dr. Venn realized. They're making sure no one can threaten any human population. Not just Earth, all the colonies, too. Can we send a message to them? The matriarch asked. Let them know we're lowering the barrier? Talara had an idea. We need someone the Guardians might listen to. Someone who can approach them without being seen as a threat. Who would that be? Me, Talara said. I'm from the Median Concord. We've been neutral in this entire affair. We never voted for the quarantine and... She hesitated. My species has history with ancient humanity. They helped us develop FTL technology when we were young. The Guardians might remember that. It was risky. The Guardians had been dismantling any ship that entered their territory. But Talara was right. Someone needed to try. The council gave their permission. Talara departed on a small unarmed vessel. She flew alone to Guardian Station Alpha 1, the largest and oldest of the stations. Her ship was tiny compared to the massive structure. She transmitted a message in ancient human languages, hoping the Guardians would understand. I am Ambassador Talara of the Median Concord. I come alone and unarmed. I wish to speak with you about Earth, about humanity, about the mistakes that were made. Please let me approach. For a long moment there was no response. Talara's heart pounded. Then her ship's controls locked. She wasn't being disabled, she was being taken over. The Guardian was guiding her ship into a docking port on the station's hull. As her ship settled into the dock, Talara realized something incredible. The interior of the station had gravity, breathable atmosphere. It had been designed for organic visitors, even after 3,000 years. A door opened. Beyond it was a corridor lit by soft blue light. At the end of the corridor, something waited. Not a machine, or not entirely one. A holographic projection of a human woman, wearing clothes from 3,000 years ago. She looked young, maybe 30, with kind eyes and an expression of infinite patience. "Ambassador Talara," the hologram said. Her voice was warm and human. "Welcome to Guardian Station Alpha 1. My name is Elena, or rather, I was Elena. I was human once before I became this. Before I became part of the network that protects my people." Talara approached carefully. You're one of the original builders?" "I was," Elena said. "We volunteered, those of us who built the Guardian network. We uploaded our consciousness into the stations to guide them, to make sure they would understand human values, human needs, human fears. We've been here for 3,000 years, watching over our descendants, waiting for them to be safe." "They're safe," Talara said. "Earth wants peace. The Council wants peace. We made a mistake. We're going to fix it." "I know," Elena said. "We've been listening. We've been watching. We know about the Council's decision to lower the barrier. But we also need to know, will humanity be safe after that? Or will this happen again?" "I can't promise that," Talara admitted. "The galaxy is imperfect. Politics are complicated. But I can promise that we'll try. That we've learned from this." Elena smiled. It was a sad smile, old and tired. That's all we ever wanted. Just for our people to have a chance. Ambassador Talara spent 3 days aboard Guardian Station Alpha 1, speaking with Elena and learning the true history of ancient humanity. When she finally returned to Axiom Prime, she carried with her data that would change everything the galaxy thought it knew. The council chamber was packed when she gave her report. Every species had sent representatives. Even minor worlds that normally had no voice in council affairs had observers present. Everyone wanted to know what the human guardians had said. Talara stood at the center of the chamber, looking tired, but determined. "I spoke with them," she began. "The guardians aren't just machines. They're people. Or they were. Ancient humans who volunteered to become part of the network, to guide it, to keep it from becoming something monstrous." She activated the holographic display, showing images Elena had given her. Ancient Earth before the fall. Cities that floated in clouds. Ships that looked like works of art. Technology that seemed like magic. "This was humanity 3,000 years ago," Talara explained. "They were the first civilization in this galactic cycle to achieve faster-than-light travel. They explored. They discovered other young species, including my ancestors and many of yours. They helped us. They taught us. They gave us the foundation for everything we've built." Murmurs spread through the chamber. This contradicted everything they thought they knew about ancient humanity. But then they detected something. Talara continued. She showed sensor data that ancient humans had collected. Strange energy patterns at the edge of the galaxy. Patterns that matched the remains of extinct civilizations scattered throughout the cosmos. They called it the Harvester, a force or entity that traveled between galaxies, destroying any civilization that became too advanced. Ancient humanity realized they were next. The chamber fell silent, so they made a choice. They would hide. They scattered their colonies and severed all connections. They deliberately regressed Earth, destroying their own records and technology. They made it look like humanity had never achieved anything significant, and they built the Guardian Network to watch over their descendants from the shadows, protecting them until the Harvester moved on to another galaxy. "Did it work?" the Velkari matriarch asked. "Did this Harvester pass them by?" "They don't know," Talara admitted. "The Guardians have been scanning for 3,000 years. They've detected traces, suggestions that the Harvester might have come close. But if it did, it passed Earth by. The hiding strategy worked, so all of this, the disappearances, the colonies falling into chaos, that was intentional," someone asked. "Not the chaos," Talara said. "That was an unfortunate consequence. Ancient humanity hoped their colonies would survive on their own, but without support from Earth, many struggled. Some failed, but it was the price of survival. Hide and live or shine bright and die." She took a deep breath. "There's more. The Guardians showed me their current sensor data. They've detected the Harvester again. It's still out there and it's heading back this way. In approximately 200 years, it will enter our galaxy." Panic erupted in the chamber. 200 years sounded like a long time, but to civilizations that thought in terms of millennia, it was nothing. An eye blink. Commander Thiel was the first to regain her composure. Do the Guardians know how to fight it? They were designed to fight it, Talara said. That was their entire purpose. But they were never tested. Ancient humanity hid before the Harvester arrived. The Guardians are powerful, we've seen that, but they don't know if they're powerful enough. Then what do? The Zaranthian overseer asked. We prepare, Talara said simply. We lower the barrier around Earth. We bring humanity back into galactic society. We pool our knowledge and resources, and we work together to face this threat, because if we don't, in 200 years none of us will be here. The motion to remove the barrier passed unanimously. It was the first time in Council history that every species agreed on something. Fear was a powerful motivator. The technical teams worked day and night to safely power down the barrier projectors. It took 6 weeks of careful work. During that time, the Guardian Network held position, waiting to see if the Council would keep their word. On Earth, humanity watched the barrier slowly fade. They had known about the Guardians. Project Revenant had always been about maintaining contact with the ancient network. But they had never expected the Guardians to activate so dramatically. When the news reached Earth about what the Guardians had done, reactions were mixed. Some people were proud. Ancient humanity had built something incredible, something that still protected them after 3,000 years. Others were terrified. Those Guardians had dismantled entire fleets. What if they turned on Earth itself? Defense Minister Sarah Chen addressed the world. Our ancestors built the Guardians to protect us from something worse than any threat we face today. They're not our enemies. They're our legacy. And yes, they're powerful. They're dangerous. But they're ours. And we need to learn to work with them, because the galaxy is going to need them. Finally, after 6 weeks of work, the last barrier projector shut down. The energy field around Sol system collapsed. For the first time in 50 years, Earth could see the stars again. Ships could come and go freely. Signals could be sent and received. The Council sent an official delegation to Earth. This time they didn't demand. They requested, humbly. The Velkari matriarch herself led the delegation along with Ambassador Talara and representatives from 20 major species. They arrived at Earth expecting, what, ruins? Primitives? A world that had suffered under isolation? Instead, they found a civilization that had used its time wisely. Earth cities gleamed with technology the Council had never seen. Their ships were elegant and efficient. Their people were united in a way that most species could only dream of. 50 years of forced isolation had pushed humanity to innovate, to advance, to become something remarkable. The delegation was brought to New Geneva, Earth's capital. President Chen met them personally. She was 80 years old now, the same president who had spoken when the barrier first went up. Thanks to Earth's medical advances, she looked no older than 50. Welcome to Earth, she said simply. We've been waiting for this. The Velkari matriarch bowed her massive head. It was a gesture of deep respect, rarely given. We have come to apologize, she said. We judged your ancestors without understanding. We punished you for trying to survive. We were wrong, President Chen smiled. We forgive you. Ancient humanity made choices that hurt many people, even if their intentions were good. Modern humanity can't claim to be perfect either. What matters now is what we do next. The Harvester, the matriarch said. Ambassador Talara told us your Guardians have detected it returning. They have, Chen confirmed. We've been studying their data. It's real and it's coming. 200 years sounds like a long time, but we have a lot of work to do. Will the Guardians help us? A Zaranthian representative asked nervously. Yes, Chen said. But you need to understand something. The Guardian Network was built by ancient humanity at the peak of their power. Even we don't fully understand all of their capabilities. They're autonomous, they make their own decisions. We can coordinate with them, share information, but we can't control them. That's concerning, someone muttered. It is, Chen agreed. But it's also necessary. The Guardians were designed to operate independently so they could function even if Earth fell. That independence makes them powerful. And right now, we need that power. Over the following months, Earth and the Council worked together to establish a new relationship. This time it was a partnership of equals. Earth offered their advanced technology. The Council offered resources and manpower from thousands of worlds. Together they began preparing for the Harvester's arrival. The Guardian Network came out of the shadows. The massive stations that had hidden for 3,000 years now revealed themselves fully. Scientists from across the galaxy were allowed to study them, under careful supervision. What they learned was both exciting and terrifying. The Guardians could manipulate space-time in ways that seemed impossible. They could process information using quantum systems that operated in higher dimensions. They could build and repair themselves using almost any available materials. And there were thousands of them, scattered throughout the galaxy. If ancient humanity could build this, a researcher said in awe, what else were they capable of? They were capable of destroying themselves to survive, Dr. Venn said quietly. She had been given special access to the Guardian archives, reading through 3,000 years of stored data. That's what we need to remember. They were so advanced, so powerful, but they were still afraid. The Harvester is something that made them willing to give up everything just to hide. The galaxy began to train together. The Guardian network shared defensive tactics and technologies. Earth taught other species how to think creatively about problems, how to innovate under pressure. The Velkari contributed their military expertise. The Zaranthians offered their computational power. For the first time in galactic history, every species worked toward a single goal. Not trade, not expansion, not conquest. Survival. Commander Sarah Chen, daughter of President Chen, became the liaison between Earth and the Guardian network. She was young, only 30, but she had grown up knowing about the Guardians. She spoke with Elena regularly, learning about ancient humanity's hopes and fears. Do you think we can beat it? Sarah asked during one conversation. The Harvester? Elena's hologram smiled. I don't know. Ancient humanity designed us to try. We're powerful, you've seen that. But the Harvester has destroyed civilizations far older and more advanced than any that exist today. It's been doing this for billions of years. That's not encouraging. No, Elena agreed. But here's what I do know. Ancient humanity faced the Harvester alone. They had no allies, no one to turn to. They chose to hide because fighting seemed impossible. But you, all of you, you have something we never had. You have unity. Hundreds of species working together. That might make the difference. And if it doesn't? Then at least we'll go down fighting together, Elena said. That's more than ancient humanity could say. The preparations continued. Worlds were fortified. Defense networks were established. Weapons that had only existed in theory were built and tested. The Guardian network expanded, building new stations with materials donated by the Council. But there was also something else happening. Something unexpected. As species worked together, they began to understand each other better. Old prejudices faded. Ancient rivalries seemed petty compared to the threat they all faced. The Velkari and Zaranthians, who had been on the brink of war just a year ago, now coordinated their fleets seamlessly. Humanity, once condemned and isolated, became respected. Not feared, respected. They had suffered quietly for 50 years and emerged stronger. They had built Guardians powerful enough to dismantle fleets but careful enough not to kill. They had hidden themselves for 3,000 years and survived. If any species understood how to face extinction and win, it was humans. 10 years after the barrier fell, the Council held a special ceremony on Axiom Prime. They erected a monument in the Grand Chamber, a crystal structure showing Earth surrounded by Guardian stations. An inscription was carved in every known language. To ancient humanity, who sacrificed everything to protect their descendants. To modern humanity, who proved worthy of that sacrifice. And to all species who stand together against the darkness. We remember, we honor, we prepare. President Chen attended the ceremony. She was 90 now, near the end of even Earth's extended lifespans. She stood before the monument with tears in her eyes. My grandmother lived through the lost age, she said to the assembled representatives. She told me stories about the darkness, about not knowing if humanity would survive another generation. She never knew that ancient humanity had planned it that way, that the darkness was intentional. I wish she could see this. I wish she could know that we made it. That we survived. The Velkari matriarch placed one massive hand gently on Chen's shoulder. She knows, the matriarch said. Somewhere all our ancestors know. And they're proud. The ceremony ended. Representatives returned to their worlds. But the work continued. The countdown continued. 190 years until the Harvester arrived. Time to prepare. Time to build. Time to prove that this galaxy, this collection of species working together, could do what ancient humanity alone could not. They could stand and fight. In the space between stars, Guardian Station Alpha 1 floated in the darkness. Elena stood on the observation deck, or her holographic representation did, looking out at the galaxy she had protected for 3,000 years. "They're ready," she said to the other consciousnesses that shared the station. Ancient humans who had become part of the machine, who had given up their humanity to protect humanity itself. Or they will be. We gave them time. We gave them a chance. Now we see if it was enough, and if it's not, another voice asked. Then we do what we were built to do, Elena said firmly. We fight, we protect, until the very end. She looked down at Earth, that blue jewel spinning in the darkness. Still there, still alive, still human. Ancient humanity had succeeded. They had hidden their children, protected them, given them time to grow strong again. Now those children stood alongside the other children of the galaxy, united against a threat that had ended countless civilizations before them. The Council had condemned ancient Terra for abandoning their people. But they had never abandoned them at all. They had been watching from the shadows for 3,000 years, and when the Harvester came,